Welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. Advice, thoughts, and stories from a married couple on cybersecurity, technology, and life in general. Now here are your hosts, Didi and Lital.
Hello, and welcome to the Didi and Lital Show. It's another week, and Didi, you're remote today.
Yes. It's a very, very sad day when a nice Middle Eastern such as myself use 34 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius as nice and warm. After a week of 14 feels like 0 Fahrenheit. This is nice and warm.
Did you run outside? I didn't check if you ran outside. You did.
You can't run outside, mainly because I'm old, fat, and I'll slip and break my hip and somebody will need to shoot me.
Yeah. Well, I spent the week in New York City, and weather was relatively okay. I did run in the park twice. And now I feel like I'm developing some sort of who knows, whatever. That's what happens when you are staying for a week in sales kickoff, too many people, too long day, unventilated room.
So you came over with Dave and me.
You'll come back and you'll get it. Yes, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll stick on MLK. Awesome. Nothing like coming back to getting sick.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, that gift that keeps on giving. Get COVID again.
I am in a hotel with a whole bunch of junior Florida Panther kids.
Okay. That play?
The parents keep apologizing for hockey kids, and I just laugh and laugh and laugh. Because first,
why you miss your kids?
No, of course not. They're shit. They're assholes, especially Omri. Now he's major asshole. But the fact that they think that their kids are the worst, and I know at least one team that would never want to be staying in a hotel room, with. And I'm not naming names, but trust me, we are a lot worse. We are a lot worse when we travel.
I don't know. When we travel, Ron stays in the room and solve Russian math school problems. So I think that's not disruptive to anyone.
But there's 11 other players.
Yeah, that make fun of him for staying in the
11 other players
solving calculus problems while they go out to drink or whatever they do.
Yes. Anyways,
vape and whatever. Well, on the news, the Biden administration in the last minute before fading into Trump's inauguration gave us a great present. And no, I'm not talking about the hostages exchange with Hamas. That's another political topic or non-political. Very happy that some hostages hopefully will come back alive next week. But we're talking about the executive order about cybersecurity that dropped last night. I'm sure, Didi, you stayed awake and read every single word in it.
Yes, I did. I actually made some highlights and quotes.
Actually, I did too. I also asked ChatGPT about what he thinks about it, and we posted a note about it. But the amazing thing is Section 3, all the section starts with saying what we have been saying, that identity access management is cybersecurity, that everybody needs to think about it as cybersecurity, and giving guidance. So first, hallelujah. That's good news. We in the industry are really happy. I'm sure a lot of people from the industry were lobbying and talking to the administration to have it. But let's first start. What do you think about the overall executive order? Is it a good thing? What's your overall impression?
Let's start with basically a 3-sentence on the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is, first, it raises awareness and it uses a very demanding language. A lot of times executive orders use a lot of shells and woulds, and coulds, and it says, I would really like you to do something.
It's recommending, guiding, not enforcing.
Yes, this one is a very clear language, and it's also very clear, pointing towards.
I agree. It wasn't wishy-washy. It was
Wishy-washy.
extremely kind of like, this is what we believe need to be done.
Yes. So on that part, it's not wishy-washy. It also points actual technical bodies that have been working and not sitting on their ass for the last 4 years, which is NIST. They pointed specifically to 863 A to D, which we've been talking about in the podcast.
They're talking about the CISA previous guidelines,
yes.
clearly referring to them. Yes.
Clearly pointing to the CISA recommendations with the need for mobile IDs and for identity verification to be automated.
They also, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And for a lot of those elements that CISA were recommending for a while, and we've been quoted in terms of phishing resistance and strength of authentication, and making AI visible, and making AI ML. If you remember, we were talking about algorithmic transparency. It's talking about a lot of those things that before were recommendations are now requirements, because they're specifically guiding the bodies that the OMB and FAR, the bodies that actually buy stuff for the federal government. It says, if you want to sell to the federal government, you have to do this. And a lot of times when they say, if you want to sell to the federal government, you have to do this, most of the financials and most of the big healthcare adhere to those guidelines because they rather not invent their own rules.
Yeah. Let's get in a second to the impact outside of federal world.
Yeah.
Going now, on your thread, 1 second.
This is a good. Let's talk about the bad.
Yeah. Oh, before you get to the bad, I want to add, you're like, you being you, and when we're not in the room, it's even worse. You wouldn't let anyone. You don't have a sense of the other part want to add something. So hold on, it's a conversation.
Conversation is me blasting it into the air, and that's me having a conversation.
Didi being Didi.
Yes.
So I want to add to this point about the good. I think they're very clearly calling out the threats. They very clearly give examples and explain why some technologies that people believe are sufficient, like MFA, we've been talking so much about it, are not, and it's been proven in attack again and again and again. They mention it, they call it out. So they are debunking some of the greatest beliefs in the industry that, some previous kind of standards are sufficient, calling out, showing that they were popped by hackers again and again and again. So they put a lot of clarity, specificity, calling out what's working and what's not working. And I think this is part of the reason why this will have impact outside of the government. It's not just, we are mandating it for the federal folks. It's actually so specific in calling out what behaviors are helpful and what are no longer valid, that I think everyone will follow because it makes so much sense. And it's not just, those are like rigid guidelines just for those that are in the most extreme and need to follow the most extreme rules.
Yep.
So, agree. What else? So, you want to go to the bad. What's
the
bad?
bad? The bad is that it has risen the bar. And this is where I miss not being in the same room as Dave. Because whenever I say raise the bar, I think of Sam Elliott in The Big Lebowski saying, "Some days you get the bar, and some days the bar gets you." I'm assuming Dave knows what I'm talking about.
Well, it's good for, somebody that came out of sales kickoff and the bar was the highlight of the day.
So it raised the bar and for entry, because while I'm really sure that the next startup Dennis and I will build can hit a lot of those requirements, most engineers I know, yes, very much so.
Well, a wiser fellow than myself once said, sometimes you eat the bar and much obliged. Sometimes the bar, well, he eats you.
Yep. So sometimes the bar eats us. So that voice of Sam Elliott. If I had that voice, I'd only do podcasts. In the meantime, when we think of raising the bar, it is going to be very challenging for a lot of startups to be able to do some of the requirements, because they're talking about fully automated and mandated attestations for secure development lifecycle.
Mm-hmm.
For almost everything delivered to the federal government. It's not just for security. You're talking about everybody. You want to deliver to the federal government right now and hit FedRAMP, you need to do fully automated bill of material, and you need your subcomponents to be fully automated bill of material. You need to be able to attest that not just you, but also your full supply chain is secure.
Okay.
And that is not trivial. That is very, very not trivial. Now, if you have a team that's been doing this for 20 years, we know how to do this. But I'm thinking that most of the smaller companies will find it very challenging. And by the way,
It was always challenging, Didi. I mean, most startups don't go sell to the federal government from day one. It takes a while to be ready to do FedRAMP. It takes a while to qualify for FedRAMP, even medium. We know, I mean, we're going through that. But so it's not, I don't think it changes that much the status quo, because startups are not going day one selling to the federal government unless they're built from day one to be a federal supplier.
But it will have a pull-down effect. This is the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Down effect. Education will not mandate everything. We'll start mandating some of these things. Because all the time, you'll see that FedRAMP is the gold standard.
Right.
But everybody takes parts of it into the SOC 2s of the world. The automated SDLC is going to start being a requirement for healthcare, for education, for local government, for a lot of things that are not FedRAMP.
Okay. And why is it bad for startups to start thinking about it from day one and build that way?
It's not bad. I said it raised the bar. And not everybody is able to do that. This has been problem number one always. It raises the barrier to entry. And it will go back to my main, and will be a barrier to continuous selling. So it means that it will force more and more of this motion of Series A to acquisition and consolidation, and not just in security. And this is the thing that most people don't follow when they read this. I was talking about this chatting with this with some members of the bigger Cisco team. This is not just for security. This was like a very oh shit moment. It's not just for security vendors. This means that if I deliver, I don't know, Salesforce equivalent or something equivalent to that. Anything to the federal government right now, you'll need to show secure development lifecycle.
Sure, nobody wants to have a backdoor in the software.
But that means that it raises the bar and makes innovation harder. If you build a security product, you have to have security professionals. But if you're building a good CRM, if you're building other stuff, do we really want to demand some of those things?
It's a good question. If you think about NotPetya, I think it was a backdoor delivered by a software of, the equivalent of the IRA of the Ukraine government. And every company that had to pay tax in the Ukraine at the time had to install it. And shipping companies like Maersk that, had big presence over there were significantly impacted. So I guess it makes sense. Maybe it's hard, but, knowing everything about the build and attesting that nobody that shouldn't have access to the code had access to the code, or that the source of any piece of code that in the code you are serving your customer. I think it's a legit requirement. And, that's probably an area for innovation for companies to go and serve with those attestation tools for, clean development lifecycle. So that's on the good side, right? New requirements, new markets.
This is an opportunity. So there's definitely going to be an opportunity here.
Absolutely. And it has been, but nobody enforced it. And, then there are tech companies that, have locks secure of their code. And yes, people inject malicious backdoors. So shouldn't happen.
Now let's go to the ugly.
Let's go to the ugly.
So you were talking about vulnerable populations and immediately said, oh, DEI. No, it's not DEI. It's talking about your parents. But there are some things that came in through this that are very political. I'll give you an example. Microsoft and Google have been pushing for DNS encryption, header encryption for a very long time. This breaks almost all firewall product out there. DNS header encryption will break most of the firewalls, and it opens the market only to two players, Microsoft and Google. These are the only two players that can build solutions that deal with this. That's bad. Well, probably they probably will open the market to AWS as well, because anything hosted on GovCloud will probably need to deal with this, and AWS is probably geared to solve some of the stuff as well. But it means that if you're Palo Alto, if you're Checkpoint, if you're Cisco, you're looking at this and say, "Oh shit." There's specific things with regards to EDR that I still need to talk to some of my EDR experts. Jonathan didn't respond last night when I was pinging him about this, but maybe he's in denial that he was in the EDR business. But I need a smart EDR person to tell me how fucked are the EDR XDR vendors.
Why?
Because there's specific requirements in the lettering there that clearly somebody sat there with Defender and took notes.
I guess between, George Kurtz and people from Microsoft, they influenced it. I mean, those things are heavily lobbied by the big names.
The EDR section was very, very heavily lobbied by CrowdStrike and by Microsoft. And the fact that it didn't discuss safe development, it was very clear that there was a safe development angle there. Because, as you know, the Biden administration has been pushing for not kernel mode, for using Rust over C, things like that for safe development languages, so you won't have out of memory and all those
memory leaks. Yep.
Memory leak problems. this is clearly left out because it was clearly pointing towards CrowdStrike and Defender. It basically wants a two-player market on that sense. The AI part was, on one hand, amazing, and the other, terrible.
AI is that's linked also to a previous decision this week, which kind of like decided to limit the sale of GPUs to certain countries, and put a lot of limitations. And we, like, as Israelis caring about the tech industry in Israel, Israel got marked as, I don't know how they call it, a type B or like whatever, but it has limitation to the amount of GPUs that can be exported to Israel.
Yeah.
Together with other countries. And it is political, with the idea of limiting countries that have some ties to China, or the kind of standards are unclear to the government. So only very few countries are like on the A list that are not limited by the export of GPUs. And of course, companies like NVIDIA are extremely against it, saying it's like against free market and innovation, and limiting GPUs is not the way to go. I mean, the number of GPUs they put now in the limitation will be irrelevant, and I don't know, months, maybe years. That's not the way to go. But I don't know. The AI is hot, and this is very much of the America First way of, like, you know, that Trump America First starts with America wants to be the AI center of the world and to lead the AI race, and will do everything it could to prevent others from becoming even second.
So from my perspective, one of the interesting things is, because of some of the political aspect of this, I'm wondering if the friends Elon and the likes will not reverse this on January 22nd. This is what
yes and no. This is part of those things that make me saying
this one is really good and important, and I believe that it's a little bit of them trying to beat Elon to basically doing the same thing, but they just did just enough to piss guys like Elon and Vivek enough.
So my take on that is that, and that's an assumption, thinking of Trump's way of doing things. This is type of the things that the GPU limitation, export and stuff. I think this is a leverage that Trump will not go and cancel like on day one. He actually going to use it as a leverage to deal with any foreign country. You want to be able to get more GPUs from NVIDIA for whatever healthcare, pharma project your industry has. Okay, let's negotiate tariffs. Let's negotiate this. Whatever he wants to get, can negotiate NATO stuff. I mean, most NATO countries are within those that have no limitations on. But I think he just got a present that from the previous administration that will help with his negotiation, because GPUs are basically becoming the way for countries to move into the future, the present already. Like, without that, it will be very hard to negotiate. You know, I'll put a pause. It's like this idea that I heard somewhere on the internet, like everything I'm getting somewhere on the internet, of if Trump really wants to get Greenland from Denmark, he should tie it to selling Ozempic. If you're not aware, Ozempic is like the sales of Ozempic.
We're completely leaving the executive order.
Yeah. But I want to say that because it's kind of like everything is linked when it's political. Trump is about, the art of the deal, and about, all his foreign policy is going to be using all kinds of levers to negotiate and win better deals and make America stronger through that. So there was this discussion about if he actually wants peacefully, without any issue, win and get Greenland or get strong agreement around Greenland and get kind of Denmark to just give it away. You have to tie to Ozempic, which is the sales are bigger than the total Ozempic, manufactured by Novo Nordisk, a Danish company. The sales of Ozempic nowadays is, I don't know, 2x, 3x the GDP of Denmark. Don't know the numbers. Somebody fact check me. But if you say, we're going to put it as part of Medicare, Medicaid, that's like bigger than the GDP of Denmark. And Trump can say, I'll give you Medicare and Medicaid coverage for Ozempic, and you give me Greenland. That would be the deal for the Danish people, to give away Greenland. But going back to the executive order, because what I wanted to say is I think all the AI restrictions, not just in general, are becoming a way to negotiate stuff. It's political. No, you go away, but you go in and talk about the cybersecurity aspects of it.
So the cybersecurity aspect of this, let's give a public service announcement to everybody that's listening to the podcast of what they need to know about this executive order. So for me, the thing that I like the most, and the thing that it's not actually our identity part, it's more Aaron's part of the world, not Aaron Woolen, who again will listen and again will say, hey, by the way, I spent a week with Aaron, so awesome spending time with Aaron. But Aaron, our friend from NameTag, the push for a mobile driver license and a real ID, and anchoring that real ID in identity verification and a verification flow, this is going to be a real establishment of a root of trust for activity on the internet. This is, if you remember, we were talking about having a real ID. This is the first thing that will force the existence of real digital IDs in the US. And if I'm a bank, and if I am Facebook, and if the government wants to regulate and monetize some of those things, because as we know, both Trump and Elon are not big fans of trolls with no face on the internet. This can force that if you want to be able to publish things on the internet, you need to have that real digital ID. And it makes the world of companies like NameTag a lot easier, but also maybe dilutes their value, because it means that right now you can start building identity verification based on those standards. Right now, I think one or two states has a mobile driver's license, but think of the ability for a company like yourselves or Duo to run a verification if the ID is on the phone or on the computer through the passkeys. I click a button, I verify, I'm done.
So, yeah, I agree. That's a huge thing. And pushing towards that is actually something I didn't expect from this administration. It is much more of a fit of the upcoming administration that is talking about, not from a cybersecurity, but having stronger verification for election voting. Both Vivek and Elon were talking about that. Why wouldn't there be real ID? And they're talking about the fact that some states also removed the need to even verify your identity while voting. So I think that politically, we're probably going to go into that area and even go stronger with it, not just from cybersecurity, but from all aspects of life. It will be interesting, because I think with the Trump MAGA movement, there is also the opposite, that people don't want to be verified, don't want to have any, ability of the government to monitor you and know who you are. So there's going to be a fight. And I think that's going to be interesting to see if those elements become, not canceled, keep on going, and even take, bigger form of federating it and kind of governing around that, not just for cyber, but also for other parts of life. It will be interesting if real ID, digital ID, verified, linked to biometrics will become a thing.
Yes. And if that exists, think of possibilities, because now I can actually link my real ID when I sign the document and I send it over email. I can the damage that this can do to phishing and other identity fraud.
All the fraud. I mean, well, I'm sure there are going to be ways to circumvent, and nothing is perfect, but it's at least for a while until fraudsters will find the loophole. It strengthened a very, very open door for everything bad that is happening on the internet in the last 30 years.
Yes.
That is only escalating with AI.
Yeah. And this, I think, will give a lot of companies, this is a real interesting market that's just opened up. The other part.
This is happening? Like, this is going to become a reality?
Yes. Yes.
This is the one area that feels like it's still unclear how this will be implemented.
No. So there is a standard that Microsoft, Apple, and Google created. Google already supports mobile driver license on your phone. It supports it in many countries around the world. It's it requires a hardware module encryption on the device. There's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to happen, but it supports it. And it's really good.
I'll ask you the following. Do you think that kind of like you cannot fly unless you have real ID by sometimes 2026? Is it 2026 or 2025 that this is coming to become enforced, and it got pushed and pushed and pushed again? Do you think this is happening soon?
I don't care about flying. I don't care about flying.
But what I'm saying is it's a great idea. Implementation. There you go. May 7, 2025, federal agencies, including TSA, will begin Real ID enforcement. Originally, it was 2024. I think it got pushed. Before that, it was like maybe 2022. The pandemic completely changed it. So my point is, it's great that there are tools already, that it's possible. Actually implementing and making it happen is a question of a decade.
I disagree with you on some of the stuff. Specifically, the Real ID element of this executive order discusses something that relates to the digital literate people. The problem with Real ID is that it captures the technological literate and the technological illiterate in the same bucket. If I want to fly, or I want to get a service from the bar, again, we're going to the bar, I don't give a fuck about ID, not ID. I want to have something. And I think this is where we're mixing populations. Transacting online or posting on Facebook is not a right, it's a privilege. And when you talk about privilege, you can demand a higher bar to get to privileges. And this is the difference. You can't force digital IDs for rights. You should force digital IDs for privileges, especially if those privileges are damaging.
So you think the ability to open a bank account is a privilege?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you need to be technical literate to own the bank account. If you're not technologically literate, the damage you can cause to everybody else is bigger. So digital ID, I think, is a big thing. The other thing that is really big is all the elements around cryptography. I'm not going to go into the elements of cryptography in the podcast, but the one that is important for people to understand is the requirement to start developing algorithms that are quantum compute resistant. All
there is already kind of like the concern that quantum computing will kill the RSA encryption.
yes,
any of the equivalent.
yes. So the basic element that everybody that is listening to this podcast needs to understand, asymmetrical key usage depends heavily on discovery of prime numbers.
Yeah.
Most people need to know what that means. When our kids ask us about math in school, understanding these things is critical to be a successful citizen of the future world. That needs to change, that prime number asymmetric key detection. Because
once you have quantum computing, you just break this
yes.
in milliseconds. So the bar, again, is becoming low, which apparently the bar is impossible to break.
Yes. And this is an interesting element of this because people, this opens up a whole space of cryptography that basically since a Seder 1 million years ago was a solved problem. So in case you don't know, Rav Shamir Edelman went to a Seder and invented the RSA algorithm over a Seder dinner. So that kind of goes to show you the importance of Seder dinners.
Talked about it several times before.
Yes, but it's still funny. Something well came out of that besides the matzah. Now we need somebody else to come back with a new solution for that.
Okay, so it calls it out, and this is an area that you think innovation will come. Cool. Well, yes. We're at time, so maybe last thoughts.
Yes, last thoughts is the machine, making things machine readable. One of the things that companies like Splunk and Microsoft with Sentinel made billions off of is that developers do stupid shit, put logs that are meant to be read by humans, not read by machines. The new requirements means that your security loggings and your security attestations need to be machine readable, which means that it's gonna be a big disruption for a lot of the SIM vendors and their likes. And I think it will open the door for companies like Cribble that work on much more structured data versus the companies that work on unstructured data or semi-structured data. So it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts our bottom line with the acquisition of Splunk.
That's why AI is for. Can take this unstructured and put structure.
That's the idea, is to be able to tag the data in a way that AI can make more sense of it.
Yeah, and you can use AI to make it ready for AI too. Cool. Well, we highly recommend everybody check the EO. It is a really interesting one. We don't know how much of it will be valid a week from now, less than a week. It's Friday and Monday's inauguration date, but I have a feeling this is not high on the priority list to just go and cancel this one. Trump administration will have so many executive orders in the first few days. It's not going to be around that. I mean, this is one area that we think that current administration did a relatively good job, and maybe more than relatively good job. They did a good job, right? We're pretty happy with those things. So kudos. We probably weren't that positive about other things. So let's say it when we think it. And with that, go check it out, read it, send us more thoughts. Let's chat about it on LinkedIn. The Didi and Lital Show is a weekly podcast. If you like us, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcast. We will be here next week. Until then, thank you. Bye, Didi. Come back home. See ya.
Yeah.